Cesium-134, a radioactive substance leaked from the Fukushima nuclear disaster 3.5 years ago, has been detected off the California coast at the level of 2 becquerels per cubic meter of water. 2 becquerels is very tiny. In fact, it's 1,000 times lower than acceptable limits in drinking water set by the Environmental Protection Agency. However, that's not the point, says the man who just reported these new findings. Ken Bissler of the Woods Hole Oceanographic Institute says knowing what's coming and how much is key to making sure we're safe down the road.
That number was over 10 million next to Japan in 2011. So we've gone from what were really, really high numbers near Japan, tens of millions, unprecedented, never seen in the ocean before from an accident, to levels that quickly dropped off Japan, and now 3 years later on our coastline are only a couple of those same units. My biggest concern is what's going on in Japan today and how that might, 3 years from now, make its way across to our coastlines.
Bissler returns to Japan regularly to help scientists with the continuing cleanup and containment.
And that's why we know it's still leaking, because we're measuring higher levels off Japan to this day.
It's where the need for measurements comes in, even if the initial low numbers don't strike fear into the hearts of people.
Even just, a basic question, how much radioactivity was released in Fukushima? I can't answer that today, and we may never be able to because of the lack of sampling that happened right after, particularly in the ocean.
The United States doesn't have an agency responsible for testing for radioactivity off our shores. NOAA covers the oceans, but not radioactivity. The EPA is responsible for the air we breathe and the water we drink, and the Department of Energy tests for radioactivity on land. So Bissler turned to crowdfunding.
And so far, through 400 donations, he's received the $60,000 needed to get research vessels to collect samples for him, with the help of citizen scientists at 30 points in the Pacific. Acknowledging Bissler's findings, the Tokyo Electric Power Company, which is responsible for the cleanup and decommissioning of Fukushima, released a statement reassuring the public that it's doing all it can to properly clean up and isolate contamination. But for Bissler, TEPCO and others on the scene don't have a good reputation for communicating the numbers to the public.
Independent groups, it doesn't have to be me, but from the outside to make those studies, they should be paying for, and I would think, the independent confirmation that what they're telling people is true, and I have not seen that.
The models predict cesium levels to increase over the next 2 to 3 years.
But those models, differ by up to many months to a year, and when you might see it along your beach, along your coastline. That's not good enough. If the levels were higher, we'd be very concerned about what was going on today. So that's why we have to get out there today, even when the numbers are low. Even if you're for or against nuclear power, we need to be out there making measurements of what happened 3.5 years ago and how it's being moved across the ocean.
The monitoring will continue through the winter, with citizen scientists grabbing samples where they can, attempting to create a grid of data points spanning the Pacific Ocean on their own. In Los Angeles, Lindsay, France, RT.